This is race director Tony DiSabato. The date is September 16th. The time, 8:25 a.m. We are moments before the start of the 8th annual Philadelphia Distance Run, the largest half marathon in the world. This year, as always, the race is brought to you through the sponsorship of the Philadelphia family of YMCAs, with participating sponsorship from Ronzoni, U.S. Air, Post Grape Nuts, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and countless other individuals and agencies. The wheelchair competition is now underway, and in a few short moments, the running competition will begin. This year, the Philadelphia Distance Run boasts the deepest field in the men's division and in the women's division that has ever been assembled for a half marathon. During the course of the event, I will identify several of the elite runners for you. As you can see, Nick Rose warming up just prior to the race. That's George Malley wearing number 21. On the men's side, the race has several national and world-class competitors. Returning to defend his title from last year, wearing number 1, will be Dean Matthews. In the women's side, defending her title, wearing number F1, will be Joan Benoit Samuelson. Wearing number 4 there, you can see, is Judy St. Hilaire, who was second last year and boasts one of the top women's half marathon times ever run. I'd like to run down briefly the men's division and the women's division. Again, wearing number 1, Dean Matthews. Number 3, John Sinclair. Number 5, Don Norman, who last year ran the fastest American marathon time. Number 7, Nick Rose. We are about to start the race, so I'll interrupt this at just this moment so that we can line up for the start. I'll continue with the identification of runners in just a moment. We are just seconds before the beginning of the 1985 Philadelphia Distance Run. There you see John Sinclair, number 3. You see Julie Brown wearing F3 in the men's side of the race. Usually the women line up on the right side of your screen. There's Dean Matthews. Now you can see Joan Benoit Samuelson sliding in next to Judy St. Hilaire. And the race is underway. As I was saying, the men's field, wearing number 10, Guy Stearns, number 11, John Dobb, number 12, Craig Holm, number 15, Joseph Kipsang, number 16, Marty Freilich, number 18, Bill Donikowski, number 19, Hal Schultz, number 20, Randy Thomas, number 21, George Malley, 22, Phil Koppas, 23, Kevin McGarry, 27, Mark Kerp, 28, Mike Misioki, and number 33, Bill Reifschneider. In the women's division, you can see George Malley there taking charge from the outset. Next to him is Joseph Kipsang. I expect this first mile to be very quick as the elite runners break away from the pack. They're heading east on Market Street away from City Hall towards the Delaware River. The women's field, in addition to Joan Benoit Samuelson, wearing number 3 is Julie Brown, number 4, Judy St. Hilaire, number 6, Maureen Custy, number 9, Glennis Quick, number 10, Care Casaboon-Holm, number 12, Carol Urish McClatchy, number 13, Renee Shields, number 14, Priscilla Welsh. There are basically 3 segments to the course in the Philadelphia Distance Run. The first 3 miles are through the old section of the city, through the Society Hill section. There are several turns in the first few miles, and you'll be seeing them coming up on the camera fairly shortly. The first 3/4 of a mile is a straight shot east on Market Street. The runners will then turn onto Front Street, where they will pass the mile mark. By the time they get to 3 miles, they get into a transitional section of the course where they leave the old city and begin to approach what is known in Philadelphia as a loop. They will run up the Benjamin Franklin Parkway to the West River Drive. The course is very flat, very fast, very scenic. In the past 4 years, there have been 4 world records set. 2 in the women's division, 2 in the men's division. There have been countless American records and age category and age records set in this race as well. This year, the Philadelphia Distance Run will have more than 7,000 runners starting the race. And as I indicated to you earlier, the race is made possible through the Philadelphia family of YMCAs, which put over 700 volunteers on the course. These volunteers man aid stations, water stations, sponge stations, medical stations. As the lead pack turns the corner onto Front Street, they will shortly be passing the 1 mile split, and I will pick that off the clock for you. The 7,000 participants in the Philadelphia Distance Run will use more than 80,000 drinking cups. There will be more than 30,000 lids and straws used in those cups. There will be 15,000 sponges used. They just passed the first mile, and the first mile split is a very fast 4:38. There is no discernible pack at this time, but as the race wears on, I'm sure that there will be a group of 10 to 12 who will form the lead pack, and gradually that number will dwindle. As they round another curve, you can see George Malley is pressing the pace. He's wearing number 21. A few years ago, George set an American record in the Philadelphia Distance Run while losing to Mike Misioki, who in that race set a world record. Behind George Malley is number 28, I believe, Mark Kerp. Actually, Mike is wearing number 27. Michael Misioki is wearing number 28. The runners are now passing Independence Mall and the Liberty Bell. They're heading up Chestnut Street, which is always closed to traffic. It is a closed shopping mall. Again, we are in the historic section of Philadelphia. I can try to identify that pack for you from left to right. Mark Kerp, Bill Reifschneider, Mike Misioki, George Malley. Number 15 is Joseph Kipsang. This year there are several Olympians in the race, in addition to the women Olympic gold medal winner Joan Benoit. On the women's side, there is U.S. Olympian Julie Brown and British Olympian Priscilla Welsh. In the men's division, there are Olympians Nick Rose and Mike Misioki. runners just passed Bailey Banks and Biddle, which is a partial sponsor of the race. The first place man and woman receives what's known as the Philadelphia Bowl, which has been designed by Bailey Banks and Biddle, and we're grateful to their participation in the race. The men did pass the second mile, and I neglected to give you that split. Their 2-mile time was 9:19, and they are quickly approaching the 3-mile mark, and this is, as I indicated before, a transitional portion of the race. There are about 12 runners in that lead pack. Kerp, Misioki, Malley, Rose, Reifschneider, Sinclair, Koppas, Kipsang. They have passed 3 miles now, and their 3rd mile split was 4:41 for a total time of 14 minutes flat for 3 miles. Guy Stearns is also in that lead pack. In the middle of your screen is Bill Reifschneider. Bill was 3rd last year and pressed the pace for a substantial portion of the race. He's wearing number 33 in this race. Last year in the New Haven race, which he won, he wore number 33, and he wore number 33 in the Philadelphia distance run. This year when Bill entered the race, he requested number 33, believing that to be a good luck charm for him. The runners are now approaching Eakins Oval, named after famous Philadelphia and American artist Thomas Eakins, who has painted many historic pictures of Philadelphia and the country. Eakins Oval is just outside the Art Museum and marks the beginning of the loop referred to earlier. The runners have passed 3.5 miles of this race and are now approaching the 4-mile mark. The 4-mile mark will be on the West River Drive. The runners at this point are basically running a 4:40 per mile pace. The pack is still quite sizable, approximately 8 or 9 runners, although I do notice that Guy Stearns and Joseph Kipsang are beginning to drop off the pack just a bit. You now see the Boathouse Row and the Art Museum. They're on what's now known as the Kelly Drive. Once we make our way over to that portion of the course, I will describe why that portion of the city is so named. The pack is now down to 7. Misioki, Coppice, Rose, Kerp, Reifschneider, Sinclair, and Malley. Followed by Guy Stearns and Joseph Kipsang. As I said previously, Mike Misioki is very familiar with this course. He has won the race twice before. He won in 1982 in a then world record time of 1:01:35, and he won in 1983 at a time of 1:02:49. The world record, incidentally, is 1:01:14, recently set just a few weeks ago by Steve Jones of Great Britain in an English race. At this point, the lead pack is right on world record pace. They're running just under 4:40 a mile. They went through 4 miles in 1843. World record pace from the men's division would be 1840, so they're about 3 seconds off the world record at this point. The runners have passed 5 miles. Their 5-mile split was 4:38 for a total time of 23:21. Again, world record pace would be 23:20, so they're now only 1 second off of world record pace. The pack seems to have thinned just a little bit. They appear to have put some space between themselves and George Malley, and then in front of George, number 22, Phil Koppas. The runners have passed 6 miles, and their 6-mile time is 27:59. They're closing in on 10K. Incidentally, in the women's division, Joan Benoit broke away fairly quickly and comfortably leads at 5 miles. Her 5-mile time is 26:06. We are now at 10K, and the official 10K time as we pass the 10K mark is 28:58. Incidentally, that makes this first 10K the fastest 10K ever run on the roads in Philadelphia on a certified course. That is a certified 10K. I believe that Rod Dixon has run 29:10. And Mark Kerp in an uncertified course ran a little bit faster, but that course is believed to be short. In any event, the 10K spot is certified in this race, and that's a 28:58. The pack is still 5, but only 4 are in your picture. There is John Sinclair. John is running the tangents, although now he's coming back to join the pack. The course is certified for the runners to run the shortest distance they possibly can on this portion of the course. The roadway is open to them and only them, and they can run tangents. It appears that this lead pack has decided not to run tangents. They're running right down the middle of the road. I've noticed that Mike Misioki has a tendency not to run tangents. The net effect of this will be that the runners will run a distance longer than a half marathon. If they were to run the course the shortest possible way, the distance would be 13.1 miles. By not running the tangents, they are running a little bit longer than that. The runners did pass the halfway mark in 30 minutes and 32 seconds. If they continue that, they would run 1 hour and 1 minute and 4 seconds, which would be a new world record. So they are now under world record pace. They are running better than 4 minutes and 40 seconds for each mile. In the women's division, the world record is 1:08:34, set by Joan Benoit right here in 1984. We did not have a 5-mile split on Joan last year. Once we get Joan's 6-mile split, we'll be able to compare where she is now with where she was last year. The men have gone by 7 miles in 32:38. They ran their last mile in 4:39. On the women's side, Benoit has gone through 6 miles in 31:22. Now, last year, she ran through 6 in 31:04, so she is off world record pace at this point. I'd like to add that that 32:28 for Joan Benoit through 10K, which we just received, indicates that she's running very, very well. Joan had a somewhat frustrating year, but has rounded back into shape recently. She thought she could run very well today and was going to use today as an indicator on whether she should run a fall marathon. Unfortunately, in the last week, she has been a bit sick, and she has traveled quite a bit, and I believe she's suffering a little bit from fatigue as she comes into the race today. Nevertheless, she is running very well, and I believe this will be a positive indicator to her that she is fit to run a marathon in the near future. I suspect it will probably be Chicago. The men are now approaching the Falls Bridge, which you can see in your picture. There is a slight incline up to the bridge, very short incline. The 8-mile mark is right in the center of the bridge. So they are quickly approaching 8 miles. There we are. There's the 8-mile split. 4:38 mile, 37:16. World record pace would be 37:20, so they are still under world record pace. And you can see Nick Rose is forcing the pace a little bit at this time. That's a little bit of a surprise because Nick is known more as a 5K or a 10K runner, and recently he has been severely injured. Although he has run very well of late. A few weeks ago at Maggie Valley in a 5-mile race, he was outkicked by Dave Murphy just at the finish, and no one has been running better than Dave Murphy. In addition to the open men's and open women's competition, there are various age categories of competition in the Philadelphia Distance Run, as well as corporate and club competition. There are clubs that come from all over the country to compete here. And we also give an award to the top man and top woman from the Philadelphia area. As we look at the race at this point, we can see something very interesting happen. John Sinclair appears to be making a surge to break away from the pack. Now, I spoke to John before the race, and he was very conscious of Bill Reifschneider, who he has raced against considerably of late. Bill believed that he could run with everyone here and possibly even set a world record. John appears to be taking the race out, maybe in an attempt to run some of that aggressiveness out of Bill Reifschneider, as Bill has outkicked John in New Haven recently. Now, Nick Rose has just passed John to pick up the surging. And we'll have to get a wider angle to see what effect this is having on Bill Reifschneider. I spoke to Bill and to John prior to the race, and they both felt that the conditions would be such today that a world record would be entirely possible. The weather is perfect. The temperature is in the high 40s or low 50s. The humidity is down. There is no wind. There is perhaps a bit more sun than the runners would prefer, but with the cool temperatures and the flat course, a world record is certainly possible, especially given the caliber of the elite field this year. There are so many runners who are running consistently in the 440 pace that each should be able to help the other. That produces faster times. It appears that those surges by Sinclair and Rose have had the effect of dropping Reifschneider from the pack. Now it's Mark Kerp's turn to surge away from the pack. Mark is getting ready to run a marathon, probably Chicago. Mike Misioki is ready to make his marathon debut as well. He will be running in Bank 1. For Nick Rose, a half marathon is a marathon. He will not run any further than this distance. The men just passed 9 miles. Their 9-mile split was 4:38. So at this point, they've finished 9 miles in 41:54, which is about 6 seconds under world record pace. I mentioned earlier that this portion of the course is run on the Kelly Drive. It is named after John B. Kelly and his son Jack Kelly. You can see the rest of the field running on the other side of the river. John Kelly was an Olympian. His son Jack Kelly was an Olympian. They were both rowers. Jack Kelly has been very active in the United States Olympic Committee, and in fact was recently named the head of that body. Unfortunately, just a few weeks ago in the summer, Jack did pass away. The city has chosen the East River Drive, where Jack rode and Jack ran, and renamed that in memory of Jack and his father. I'd like to give you an update on the women's field. At this point, Joan Benoit is still comfortably in first. She went through 7 miles in 34:42. She went through 8 in 42:02. In second place is Judy St. Hilaire, and currently running in third place is Julie Brown. The trio of Rose, Misioki, and Kerp now is putting some distance between themselves and John Sinclair. There's the 10-mile mark. I'll give you the split in just a second. The 10-mile split is 46:31. That's just a few seconds slower than Greg Myers' recognized American and world record, which I believe was set in Cherry Blossom. I think that time is 46:13. I remember that race very well. Greg fell in that race and still won by quite a bit. This trio has now gone through 10 in just a few seconds slower than the world record time for 10 miles. They are well under world record pace for a half marathon. While we have a moment, I would like to take this time to thank the Philadelphia Distance Run Committee who worked tirelessly to put on this race. I'd like to name them and to thank them for their great efforts over the last year. The assistant race director is Steve Anderson. And the head of registration is Sue Felipe. Frank Greenberg handles the start and finish line in the award ceremony. Jim Crossan handles the club competition. Wayne Levy handles the corporate competition. Darrell Trent and Dick Morby handle public relations and PR and publicity. Dick Henderson handles awards. Rich Curl handles operations, which is a gargantuan task. And Prince Knight handles the pre-race expo. I'd like to thank all of those committee members for their great efforts during the year. In the lead is number 27, Mark Kerp, followed by number 7, Nick Rose. And not in our picture now, and I don't know what's happened to Michael, is number 28, Mike Misioki, two-time winner of the Philadelphia Distance Run. There's Mike coming back into your picture now. The runners are approaching the 11-mile mark. There we are. Their 11-mile split was 4:38 for a total time of 51:09. Incidentally, Joan Benoit, comfortably winning the women's division, went through 9 in 47:22 and went through, well, we don't have a 10-mile split on her yet. In reviewing the men's splits, they're rather consistent. Through the first portion of the race, their splits are 4:38, 4:39, 4:41, 4:43, 4:38, 4:38, 4:39, 4:38, 4:38, 4:37, and now 4:38 for the 11th mile. Now we have a 10-mile split on Benoit. Her time is 52:48. Again, Judy St. Hilaire is in second place. Julie Brown is in third. There is only one gradual incline in the Philadelphia Distance Run. It's an incline of only 40 feet. It's called the Art Museum Incline by the runners who run the loop on a daily basis, and it is coming up shortly in the race. I think that it may affect the pacing of the race. We'll have to wait and see when we get a 12-mile split. At the conclusion of the race, I'm going to cut from commentary, perhaps abruptly, to see if we can get some interviews with some of the elite runners. I'll try to give you a top 10 shortly after we finish in the men's division, and as many in the women as we can before we can do some interviewing. In any event, it appears that this trio is still on world record pace as they approach the 12-mile mark. They've just passed 12 miles, actually, and their 12-mile time was 55:54 for a 12th-mile split of 4:45, so the incline did have some effect on them, but they're still on world record pace. Remember, they ran the first half of the race in 30:32. They are once again crossing Eakins Oval, and Mark Kerp appears to be in charge. And it appears that they are dropping Mike Misioki. This is a truly brilliant effort for all three of these gentlemen. They have run consistently in the 440 range throughout the race. Their average is a little bit under 440 a mile. Obviously, everything went right for these three today. Kerp and Rose have now put a substantial distance on Mike Misioki. We know that Mike has great closing speed. We'll try to give you an update on the Local Runners Award, which is provided to the race by U.S. Air. It's a trip to the Orange Bowl 10K given to the first local man and woman in the race, and hopefully we'll get an award to you prior to the end of the filming today. Perhaps we can get some of the award ceremony. We're less than a half a mile from the finish line. The finish line is under the control of Chris Tatro. Chris sets up the finish line and takes care of the scoring. And we are about to come into the finish line area. And Kerp has now surged from Rose, and Misioki has now come back on Rose and is taking a run at Kerp. Prior to this point, they were running at 4:37, 4:38 pace, and they have noticeably picked up the pace. They are probably running at a sub 4:30 pace at this point. And Kerp looks in control, but so does Mike Misioki. He's closing quickly. We will not be able to take the camera into the finish line area, so the runners will pass us, and we'll have to catch them on the way by. And then they are past us. I'll pick the time. It will be a world record. Okay, there are the first three. Officially, Mark Kerp 1:00:55, which means he ran the last 1:1 in 5 minutes and 1 second. 2 seconds behind at 1:00:57, Mike Misioki. Third place in 1:01:03. Nick Rose. All three of those gentlemen have set a new world record. They have broken the old world record. We're now going to go out, and there's Dean Matthews. Dean obviously was not in shape to defend his title this year. I know he just moved to Florida and has gone through something of a transition in trying to become acclimated to the weather and conditions there. Here's Joan Benoit, wearing number F1, coming into the last mile of the race. Next to her is Fred Fisher, who rides with the first place woman throughout the race. It is through Fred that we get splits from the first place woman. She went through 9 in 47:22, and she went through 10 in 52:48. She is running very, very well, and I'm sure that this will be a great indicator to her that she is indeed fit for a marathon. I know that she's looking forward to running against Ingrid Christensen in Chicago. We now have a top 10 for you. Mark Kerp, Mike Misioki, Nick Rose, Bill Reich-Schneider in 1:01:47, just outkicking John Sinclair, also in 1:01:47. Phil Koppas, Guy Stearns, Kevin McGarry, who wins the Local Runners Award. He'll go to Orange Bowl 10K, compliments of U.S. Air. Bud Coates, and rounding out the top 10, Marty Froelich in 1:04:14. Benoit is running on a sub 1:10 pace. How much under 1:10 she'll run, we'll have to wait and see. Joan is now in the last quarter mile of the race. She is still under 110 pace. As I mentioned before, each year the Philadelphia Distance Run gives the first place man and woman a copy of the Philadelphia Bowl, which is a beautiful piece of china designed by Bailey Banks and Biddle, giving compliments of Bailey Banks and Biddle. Joan Benoit is about to win her third. Here she comes, Olympic gold medal winner and three-time winner of the Philadelphia Distance Run, Joan Benoit Samuelson. I can give you an official time now. It's 1:09:44. There's Judy St. Hilaire. She's finishing now. Last year she ran 1:10:55, which is a tremendous effort. This year, no less tremendous at 1:11:13. There's Julie Brown. She's finishing number 3. U.S. Olympian in the marathon. Former U.S. Olympian in the 800 meters. Julie Brown will be number 3. I can give you her time in a second. It's 1:12:15. We missed the 4th place woman, Glennis Quick. This is Priscilla Welsh finishing now. Priscilla ran 1:11 in an uncertified course in Great Britain. That's not recognized, I believe, as the Masters title. I think this one will be. She's just run 1:13:07. This is Patty McGovern. And this is F12. This is Carol Urish McClatchy.
The race was very competitive. The first half, it really wasn't wide open yet. There was still a bunch of 6 or 7 of us. And as soon as we made a turnaround at the bridge, I think that's where the race really developed. And there are 5 of us who really made a break. And the race is just so exciting because 1 minute I was in the lead, then Mark Kirp, and then Michael, and then John Sinclair. And about 9 miles, myself, Mark Kirp, and Michael broke away. And it just came down to a sprint finish in the last half mile, and Mark just really got away there. So it was a very competitive race, never really slowed down, and some great times.
Did you tell you guys were all running really well the whole way?
Oh yeah, I mean there was no clear decisive race. You know, the 3 of us were running fairly comfortable, obviously until the last half mile. And whenever one backed off, someone else would push it. So it never really slowed down, and that's why I think there are fast times, because 3 people were involved in the race right the way through to the end, and it just wasn't a procession.
Did it feel like a world record pace to you?
Well, for me it did. It felt very hard, and hopefully it did for the same. And obviously it's disappointing coming third, but when you end up with a time like that, I can't be too unhappy.
It was exciting from the beginning. We started out with a lead pack of about 12 people. Pretty early on, at about 8 or 9, it established itself as Sinclair, Reif Schneider, Kirp, Rose, and Miss Yoki. And then the last 3 named gentlemen started to accelerate in the latter stages, and it was down to the last 3. They all looked comfortable. They were all streaking. There was surging going on the West River Drive, on the East River Drive as well. And finally, Kerp just accelerated toward the finish, and all three, Kerp, Misioki, and Rose all broke the world record, and very comfortably broke the world record, and it was a great day. On the men's side. On the women's side, Benoit ran comfortably. She probably went out a little bit too fast and paid for it towards the end, but she still has one of the world's fastest times today at 1:09:44. But she's somewhat a little bit off the world record pace of last year, but it was still a phenomenal race. Second was Judy St. Hilaire. Third was Julie Brown. Fourth was Glennis Quick. And fifth was Priscilla Welsh, who I'm sure has established a new Masters world record, but I haven't checked that yet.
How about the race in general? The numbers? How's the race growing? The numbers?
We, again, cut off this year at 7,000, and we completely filled the race. We also, probably when you count the corporate and the team people, exceeded 7,000 by a bit. We think that that's what the course can handle, and we're not interested in the course expanding further than that because we don't want to jeopardize the safety of the runners. So we've plateaued at the level that we think is comfortable, and we would just like to provide the finest in racing for the runners in the city and throughout the country.
Last question. Are you pleased that you have another world record, and when will it be officially certified?
There's a whole certification process that must be done, and generally it takes 3 to 4 weeks to finish the paperwork and mail it into National Running Data Center. And I'm sure the course is right. It's the same course as last year. They have a procedure. We'll go through it during the next few weeks, and it'll be set up and established quickly.
Michael. Okay.
Well, the race started very well. I think I felt very good starting the pace, and I went all the way leading the other guys, and most of the guys kept hanging on behind me, and I thought that I had them, but it was too late. I could not make it. So I think I did my best, and I'm happy with my race today.
Did it feel like a world record pace?
No, I didn't feel like a world record pace until we came to the last mile. This one, they say we were under the world record, so I felt very good just coming second.
Okay. Why are we seeing you at the Philadelphia Half Marathon every year, Joan?
Well, it's a real good race. It's a fast 13 miles. 13 miles is a good distance for me, and it's always a competitive race, and I think it brings out the best in my racing abilities.
Okay. And what are your goals and plans next couple months?
I'm taking one race at a time. It's been a very long and frustrating year for me, and things are coming together quite well for me at this time. I said if I ran well here, I'd certainly consider a marathon this fall. It looks like I'll probably be running Chicago in October.
Any time goals for Chicago? World record possibly, sub 2:20?
Well, one of the reasons I chose Chicago is because it's a fairly fast course, and Ingrid Christensen has committed to that race, and I think, you know, if Ingrid and I should go head-to-head, it would make for a very good race, and that's all I'll say.
Okay, how was the race today for you?
Well, I'm pleased with my time. I was hoping to run a little bit faster than I ran last year, but unfortunately I didn't. The course is just a treat. I mean, I really enjoy it because it just seems like the miles click off one by one around the river, and I felt fine throughout. Last year my legs were buckling around 10K, but I managed to make it through the whole way without feeling that. So I'm real pleased with my performance.
You had the lead today for a while, did you not?
Probably the first 50 yards, but that doesn't count. No, I didn't. No, I was with Johnny for about a mile, and then she went ahead at that point.
Okay. What are your plans for the next couple months?
I have no marathons in mind, and this is the longest distance I'll run this year. Probably a few more 10Ks and a 15K in November, and back to the track in the winter season.
And why do you like the Philadelphia Half Marathon?
Probably, like I said before, the course. I'm not real high on running long distances, but the course seems to go so quickly, and I just enjoy the crowds and the people. It's just nice to be down here.
How'd the race go for you?
It went very well indeed, satisfactory. I'm deep into marathon training at the moment. I've got a marathon in 4 weeks' time. So Columbus, Nationwide Bank 1 in Columbus, Ohio. And so I'm really not rested up for this race. I've gone, straight from training into a half marathon. But it's great to be back racing again. It seems as if I've been away ages. because I've had a rest and I've started building up for another marathon now, and it's great to get back into racing again.
Did you want the Masters record today, and did you get it?
Yeah, I was after 110 something. My husband wanted me to do 110 something, and I would have liked to have got it. So I'm a wee bit disappointed for him, really, but it was a good blowout.
110 is the record?
No, I don't know really what the Masters record is. I think it may be 111.03, which is the British record, which I hold. I think I'm right in saying that. But I would like to have got below that. But, so, a little bit disappointed, but it was a good blowout all the same.
What would you like to do in Columbus?
Oh, that's a little secret within myself, because one doesn't go shouting about what they want to do, you know.
Do you think you have a chance of improving on your Olympic time, 2:30?
Yeah, I've got a lot of work to do on my speed. Endurance is fine, but there's a lot of work to do with my speed. Whether or not I get it together for Columbus is another matter, but it will sure be there for spring, that's for sure.
Okay.
We've got new methods that we try to iron out.
You're out there, please come up here. Have VIPs take over the bleachers if you're not a race officials or supposedly
We're going to call on there to make some, for the second year, Tony DeSabato. For coming out today for racing, for supporting runners. There are a few things that you should be aware of before we continue with the award ceremony. We had a major crisis with the race this year. In the middle of August, I returned from being out of town and discovered that miles 8.5 to 11.5 were gone. The drive was completely torn up. We met with representatives from the Department of History as possible. Without the Y, there would be no Philadelphia distance run. They provide over 700 volunteers. They provide course marshals. They provide registration. And I think that the YMCA must be thanked as many times as we can find time to do that, because without them, we would not be here today. We're going to begin with the top 10 men and women, a few remarks, and then present the Local Runner Award, along with representative from U.S. Air, Jerry Hankinson. The Local Runner Award is given to a male and female, the first male and female finisher who lives within the 8-county area of Philadelphia, or who has lived within the 8-county area of Philadelphia within a year of the race. The award is a trip by U.S. Air to the Orange Bowl Classic 10K in Florida in the wintertime.
Thank you very much. We are delighted, of course, to be the kind of host to the Philadelphia Distance Run. And, you know, I get blamed for a lot of things in the city. But today, I want to take credit for the weather. All right? And I just want to indicate to you that we're very pleased to be a part of this. Pleased to cooperate, and there's been 7,000 wonderful people out there running, thousands of spectators. We're pleased to have it happen right here in Philadelphia. Thank you all very much.
This is Kevin McGarry, winner of the Men's Local Runner Award. The women's winner is Renee Shields for the second year in a row. She'll be on the stage shortly.
Patty McGovern, 1:13:42. She's 40 years old. Her name is Priscilla Welch, and her time is 1:13:06. the fifth and fourth place men contributed substantially to the making of the pace today. They were out there hammering the entire way. They've run very good races today. In fifth place, John Sinclair, 1:01:47. Those of you who have seen tapes of last year's race will remember this man. Last year. His name is Bill Reichsteiner, and he ran 1:01:47. Run trials, you watch the Olympic Marathon, you know her. She hasn't raced in a while. She's coming back. She raced well today. Her name is Julie Brown. 1:12:15. Basically, from one of the three men is a two-time Olympian. He was an Olympian for Great Britain in 1980 and in 1984 as well. He was Nick Rose, 1:01:03. Has run a half marathon faster than our second place finisher today. She's also here too. Judy St. Hilaire's 1:10:55 last year makes her the second fastest woman half marathoner. Today, Judy again ran very, very well. She came in second. Her time was 1:11:13. He's been here twice before. Once before, he set a world record here when he ran 1:01:35. He set another world record today, or he broke a world record today, in coming in second. His name is Michael Mathieu, bronze medal winner in the 10,000 meters in the Olympics. Mike Mathieu. Before I announce the women's winner, I'm going to hold her in the men's half marathon. Now, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, someone ran a 1:01:14, which smashed the world record, which at the time was 1:01:31. 1:01:14 was a tremendous effort by Steve Jones. Steve Jones no longer holds the world record. It is again in Philadelphia, and it is now held by Mark Kirk. 1 hour and 55 seconds. been a great pleasure to run here today. I didn't expect the race to go quite that fast, and it was just a superb day to run. Everything went just great. Had a lot of guys up there pushing the pace, and just thank God for the ability to get out here and run today and have a good race, and just give the board to him. Hopefully can come back again next year and run a race equal to this or better. Thank you. Making the presentation with the mayor is Rick Burchard from Belly Banks and Biddle. The Philadelphia Bowl is a special piece that is presented by Belly Banks and Biddle each year to the first place man and first place woman. And we thank Belly Banks and Biddle, and we thank Rick Burchard for presenting this bowl today. Coming up here. This is her third straight time. She's running out of places for the Philadelphia Bowl. This will be her third. She ran great from the start today. She ran fast the entire way. I'm not going to say any more about her. Jones the race, 1:09:34. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge leave by you. Unfortunately, just recently, Julie Isperding tore her plantar fascia and is unable to make it. But Julie Brown is here and will be receiving a special award from the city, from the race, for her representation of our country, as will Joan. And now, Joan Knight.
This entire race committee for once again putting together what I consider one of the best, if not the best, road races here in the country. And I'd also like to thank the YMCA and the other sponsors for helping out and making it possible for all of us to take part. Tony called me earlier this summer and said, would you like to come to Philadelphia and run? And I said, Tony, there's nothing more that I'd like to do than come to Philadelphia and run, but I'm not running very well right now, and the race means too much to me to come down and jog through. And I said, if things come together, I'd be happy to come. Well, here I am. And without you, it wouldn't have been possible, but unfortunately, Mark and his competitors took it out very quickly this morning, and I caught wind of that, and ran a little too quickly right off the bat, but then fell into a comfortable pace and was able to hold it together and win. And again, I had a great year, and I hope I'm back again next year and continue success all year.
Before we let everybody get away, much to his...
One of the reasons that this race is so successful is that the guy standing over here is extremely able, and he has brought together continuously a field of runners that has been world-class. Probably this year has been the peak, and I can't tell you, and he probably doesn't even know how many hours that he spends telephoning people all over the world and making this race happen. 2 years back-to-back, he's finally giving in. So Tony, please, on behalf of the runners, on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to give you this.
to them, and I'm calling on Mayor Good again to make this presentation. So to Joni and Julie Brown. Julie Esperding will be receiving hers also to the 3 women who made our Olympic team.
But I think it's only appropriate that I consider this a very special award coming from Philadelphia, where your friend and mine, Jack Kelly, used to show us what fitness and health did for a great country. And thank you very much.
Our slowest mile was the 12th mile, we ran 4:45. And then the 5 or 6 miles prior to that, we were running between 4:36 and 4:38. So it was pretty even.
Last couple of miles, we were waiting for Michael. In the truck, looked like you guys were kind of...
Well, the 12th mile, Nick Rose pushed the pace pretty hard up the hill, and I caught him right around 12 miles and then started pushing past it there. And the whole last mile, I just kept trying to pick it up, and I could hear people saying, go Michael, you know. I figured he was right behind me, but I just kept pushing as hard as I could, and fortunately I was able to come out on top. Well, I felt real good the last mile. In fact, the last 2.5 miles, I felt better than the whole first 10.5. So the first 9 or 10 miles, I was just, you know, I didn't feel like I was really in a good groove. You know, I was running all right, but just didn't feel real comfortable. In the last 2.5, I started feeling quite a bit better.
At any time did it feel like a world record pace to you?
Well, they were saying, I guess, around between 8 and 10 miles that we were right around a world record pace. But when I ran in Dayton a couple years ago and ran 1:02.55, this pace actually felt more comfortable than that one. Of course, the conditions today were better, and I felt a lot better today than I did then. But it was just one of those days where everything went right, and when that happens, you usually don't feel as tired afterwards or anything like that.
Last stretch, last mile, looked like Mike Luciacchi was going to move up on you. Could you feel him behind you? Did you think he was going to catch you?
I could feel the crowd cheering him on, and I knew he was close, but I never looked around to see how close he was. In the last 0.2 of a mile, I just pushed as hard as I could, and kept thinking he was going to come by me any time, but fortunately he didn't.
Was there any surging chase starting?
Jack Rose made a surge, and then Musioki kind of maintained it, and then I was just kind of right in there. And then the 12th mile, Nick made another somewhat of a surge.
They weren't really sustained, they were just sort of short? Or
well, they were between 1/4 and a half mile long, I would say. I didn't know for sure, you know, until right into the chutes, because, you know, I've seen Michael come from behind before, you know, right at the end and really push it. I felt like he was getting a little bit tired because the last 2 miles he didn't push it right up at the front, but that doesn't mean a whole lot sometimes, you know. I guess Bix this year would have been, I guess, the other race, bigger race that I've won, but up until this time I've never won a major race with a lot of top competitors in it. So, you know, definitely this is a nice win. So I'm thankful for that. Been working on some sprint drills, trying to improve my kick at the end of the race, and I think on 2 or 3 races this year seems to have helped some, and I think today that helped quite a bit too.
But you think at that time, were you confident, or did it flash through your mind, oh no, it's going to happen again? Or
I was feeling good, so I tried not to think too much about him passing, but I just kept pushing harder and harder, hoping I, you know, could hold Michael off. But
not to think too much about what?
Not to think too much about him coming by me.